Welcome to the Royal Family Real Estate Podcast, where none of us are shy about giving our opinions. We are a local, family-owned real estate brokerage and pride ourselves on being experts in the Chicagoland area. Join us on our podcast journey to hear what's going on in our local real estate market, as well as get an insider's point of view on this crazy industry. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Excited to be back for episode 2 of the Listing Local Chicagoland podcast.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Absolutely.
Good.
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a pretty busy week. I feel like I'm getting to the end of that spring put on, all the people I've been talking about listing all spring. The last ones are
I just
trickling onto the market.
Listing agreements come in from you.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
So
yeah.
just getting the last on there, kind of just in the nick of time, because I feel like in a couple more weeks it's going to start to do its usual slowdown. So
For sure.
So I've been busy with that.
I've got 2 in a subdivision that Town Place West that has litigation, and you've only been able to have cash deals or a portfolio loan in there now. And I've got 2 that are coming on that we've been kind of waiting for this it to go to court, and it just went to court on April 15th, and now there's been a settlement. So now we should be able to open it, because if you're only cash buyers, you're maybe 15-20% of the market.
Yeah.
So now we can bring the other 80% in
Here,
on the
anyway.
market.
I don't think it's like that everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's different in every area, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, my spring is starting, and where we're at is everything's lagged. I feel like my spring is going to hit June and July for my busier season, and just how things have fallen, and just where clients are at with getting their home ready for the market. Buyers, I have a few buyers, and man, it's tough for buyers, especially if they don't have additional cash for an appraisal addendum. It's really hard still to be able to get in. The listings, although we see them slowing down a little bit, it's still moving, still going. I know that's
It's a nightmare
his
to be a
area,
buyer
but
right now.
it sucks to be a buyer.
I
for
don't
sure.
know. In McHenry, I've got price changes happening.
Well, that's
Really?
what I was
Yeah.
gonna ask. What are you
Things
seeing
are
there?
starting to
It's
sit.
different.
Yeah, things are starting to sit. Price changes in Foxmore, just your typical homes. There's nothing, you know what I mean? It's a subdivision of,
Do they try crazy high on price?
No. And then also the other thing I'm seeing a lot of is things selling in the private, which I love if I have the buyer, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm going after that stuff
It's not
in
what
the
I'm
private.
recommending for a
But
seller, though, right?
no. And also it's just hard to incorporate in your CMA and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Because you don't know what's going on with them, but not crazy high prices. Some of them, yeah, but not all. Some of them, it seems like it's, But again, you never know unless you showed that house or go look at that house.
Right,
And it
yeah, and a lot
smells
of
like
times they
cat
won't
pee or
have
what the deal is.
Yeah, right. It'll just be the front photo. You have no idea what's inside or
Right.
layout.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had a lot of success of having buyers buy something on the private
Yeah.
because there's just so little competition.
It's like my
The only 2 buyers
morning
I've
rout-
had this
yeah.
year.
Yeah, my morning routine is coffee and PLN, the private listing network, right? Looking for people, find something off market if a listing agent's going to do that. But yeah, it's a crazy market. I think I'm 2017, so I've never seen a market any type of downturn or any type of shift. But you guys have. What do you We have not only the inventory shortage of what we got going on now, but just all the other things happening in the industry. What do you guys feel like? What's the state of real estate overall right now? What are you feeling?
To me, this is very similar to what it was in 2006, where you felt like something was wrong. Prices kept going up. It can't be sustainable, but yet the economy is great.
Yeah.
Everything is going well. How do you say that anything otherwise? So, you could look at that and be like, oh, okay, but now we're gonna. If that's the way it was then, that could correlate to what happens now. But it's such a totally different dynamic now. With
supply and
inventory
demand,
was
yeah.
crazy high then and was building, and now we're at inventory levels that have never been as low as they have been. So how do you make sense of that? And demand has come down significantly. If you look at closed sales, that's come down, but still inventory remains incredibly low. The one question I have is that, so less inventory leads to less inventory, right? So if there's not much available, you're not going to get many people putting their house on the market because there's not much available for them to move into.
Where are they going, right? Unless you're moving out of state. Yeah.
So, but there is a point in time to where, that people just have to move. And I think, back in 2006, I think like the average, I don't know what 10 years is the right word. The time in a residence was maybe like before they sold, turnover was like 5 or 6 years, and now I think it's close to like 12. So you're seeing that the amount of time people are spending in homes is growing, but there's a certain point in time where people just need to make a move. So when you do see more inventory come to the market, is that going to lead to then more inventory? But we'll see that. We'll see that evolve.
It's starting to rise.
But certainly that they're not there now.
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, I guess I sort of ditto on what he says. It's just, there's nobody wants to go on the market because, it all brings me back to something I question, which is the home sale contingent offer, right? That would fix everything. But I don't think we're ever going back there, ever. You know what I mean? I mean, the majority of the people that I talk to that don't sell are not selling because they can't find anything. And they don't have to. They don't have those points in life the way they did before because they locked in at 2.75. So their downsizing isn't even financially downsizing if there's a mortgage involved, right? And then on the way other end, I guess I've heard some stuff like, people now have so much equity in the house, they don't want to pay the capital gains, so they'll just stay in the house. If it's something they have been in for 20 years. And
if it's an investment property.
Well, even if it isn't, right? Even if they bought this house for $250,000 in 2013, and now it's worth $750,000.
Where's that?
Well, there's some of them for sure in Northwood Acres and Cary, right?
Wow.
Like a friend of mine, they bought theirs for $350,000. It probably would go for $700,000 or $750,000 now.
Wow. Married?
Married,
right.
yeah.
So they're exempt
and they have to
up
have
to
paid
$500,000.
something off on it over this time, right? They've owned it for a while.
Yeah, but so if it's single, you're exempt up to $250,000 capital gains. If married, $500,000.
Right.
So,
but they still could be in that $500,000. I don't know.
I
haven't run across those people, but
Yeah.
that's just what I've heard, especially across the country is
I can see that in other markets
happening.
for sure.
Yeah.
And we always just kind of follow what the rest of the country is doing, but later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Agreed.
Kind of look out west, right? Or
Yeah, and
Florida,
any of the
I feel
like.
any of the high flying markets,
Yeah.
they're usually doing really good, and then we're like, what's going on? Why not us?
what about us? Yeah.
And then now things are changing there, so it'll probably lead to some change here at some point.
Yeah. So in real estate, we have an inventory. Call it a crisis. It's an issue for sure that is probably going to take a little bit to get out of. Building's going to have to catch up. Probably a generational shift of sorts has to happen too. And then we got what the media knows about and what we hear and other people hear on the media with the NAR settlement. So there's a lot going on right now. Royal, can you give us, and jump into where you want to, Brenna, but give us an overview of what's going on with NAR settlement?
Yeah,
Do you want me to pour you a drink?
Yeah. To celebrate?
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I know a lot of agents don't, feel otherwise, but when you think of it, it offers full transparency. And gives the seller the option whether or not they want to, I guess to back up maybe I'll just try to give the brief cliff notes on what happened, right?
Because a lot of people won't know what the NAR settlement is.
Yeah, so you've got National Association of Realtors, also known as NAR, and then you've got all these big companies, Berkshire Hathaway, Coldwell Banker, Remax, and so on, so this trial was going back to 2019. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather, so my
All good, man. Do your best.
So going back to 2019, and finally just went to a place where there was it went to trial. And when it went to trial, the jury was out for a whopping 2 hours, so not a very long time, and said that all these companies were guilty of conspiring and conspiring to inflate commissions. And NAR's policy was to have it to where you had to offer some compensation. Now, it only had to be $1. So, but there still was had to have an offer of compensation.
Was it conspiring or colluding for the same amount or a general amount that was similar?
I don't know what the difference would be, but I know that conspiring was a term that was used.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and essentially, it's just kind of a coincidence that the co-op compensation was always a certain percentage, and I think that's what they were trying to lean into. And but
that's the compensation that's offered out to the buyer's agent,
right,
on a listing.
Yeah, and we as in our company would always divide that out, and there was a place for how much we got paid and how much we offered to the buyer co-op. So I feel like we did a good job with that, but a lot of companies did not, and a lot of that evidence was brought in front of the jury, and it took a long time, but ultimately the jury said that guilty, and it was a $1.87 billion verdict, and multiply that 3 times 3 because it's antitrust, and then NAR and all these companies had to figure out how they're going to either pay that or come to a settlement, and so you saw companies like Anywhere, which owns Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Corcoran, they settled, and then Remax settled, and then NAR settled for $418 million. So a lot of these companies have now settled and said, okay, they're going to change their business practices. Now, this hasn't been fully approved yet, but the wheels are in motion, and top of mind, the business practices that are most that create the most change structurally is that, and why I think it's a good thing, is that and everyone has their opinion, and I'm on the board for MRED, so I'm certainly not speaking for the board by any means, speaking more from my company standpoint, that having the seller be able to say if they want to offer $0 to somebody or whatever percentage they want, I think is a good thing. And MRED did change their policy to where you could put 0 in there. But now with the settlement, it's going to say you can't even display compensation at all on the MLS. So it can't be a place that will allow you to talk about compensation, display it. It can't be the vehicle used for that.
And that's a game changer.
That's a game changer, yeah, because that was really the value of the MLS. I mean, to know that if I show 123 Main Street, I'm going to be compensated by that brokerage. Now, if these changes go into effect, which they're supposed to in July, we'll see, that if I go show 123 Main Street, I have to make sure that I know that broker is going to compensate me. And the MLS is not going to tell me if they are or are not. So I have to talk with that broker beforehand or figure out some type of communication channel for that.
So, as an expert that I'm not, and I don't know that there is any expert anywhere, but you know a lot of the legalities, behind things and what have you. So, but the whole thing, more in layman's terms, right, is that the public felt like agents were trying to push up their own commissions by talking with each other and letting each other know what commissions were and what they were offering out, and misunderstanding that part of that commission is being offered out to the buyer's agent and that they were paying for the buyer's agent. Is that correct? Would you say that's a correct evaluation of why this started? What were they mad about, right?
Well, bottom line would be, why, if you're a seller, why do I have to pay a buyer's brokerage?
So that's what they were upset about.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be paying the buyer's brokerage, and they weren't being explained to that they were paying the buyer's brokerage. Well,
maybe, but maybe in certain situations they felt like they no matter what brokerage they went with, and I don't know if this is the case, but they wouldn't be able to pay any less. I don't know if that's the case, but
Right.
ultimately, that the sellers didn't feel like they had any control, or felt like they didn't have all the levers that they should. Why? Bottom line is, why as a seller do I have to pay this person to negotiate against me? And to me, that makes a lot of sense. Why? I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a co-op compensation. So come July, as a company, we're not going to say, okay, we can't talk about co-op anymore. We're certainly going to do that still. We're still going to talk with the seller.
It'll be done differently, right?
I don't know how different it'll be.
Well,
it'll
maybe
be
not as of right now. I feel right now.
I feel like
we have a
so
lockdown,
far the
and we're
only
ahead of it.
change I've really seen in terms of talking about co-op is that it takes it and puts it on the seller, and most of the time they're not that happy about it. They're not like, oh great, I get to pay zero. They're like, well, now what do I do?
That's it.
It's
yeah.
right back on you. Well, now what do I do? What should
Yeah.
I offer? What's going on? What's everybody else offering? And it's like, I don't know. Is
Yeah.
that colluding too?
Totally.
You know what I mean? Okay, here's what everybody else is offering. Now I've told you. Now it's on you. Like, they seem stressed out about it.
Yeah.
They don't seem excited about it. They seem stressed out about it.
I think
it's a
it
big
depends on the
decision
seller.
for them.
Depends on
Yeah.
the seller.
It definitely does depend on the seller. And I've had some that were like, great, because I shouldn't have to blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah. But that's not the majority of the people that I'm working with are
either.
just like, well, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like, I think they felt better about if anything's going to be offered out, you, the professional, decide what you think is a good idea.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't think they're, you know what I mean? I don't think so far, and that's going to change over time, but so far, I don't think they feel unsure about it and like they're not getting professional help.
Yeah.
I don't know. They feel
Like this
they're
is
not
a
getting
decision that they have to make. Why should they have to make this? They've not been having to think about this before. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They don't seem
Mine's-
happy
yeah.
about it to me. For
To
the
me,
majority.
I think going into that conversation is just like I think this is a good change for the industry. I agree with Royal. I think we have some stuff to work out when it comes to how do we communicate our commissions as we continue to evolve. But at the end of the day, I think it's a great thing for the industry and talking with the seller now, and breaking down like, well, this is Royal Family side and my side of the fee, and then here, what do you want to pay the buyer, and having that conversation. To me, I think that is, and those were always done. Now we're looking at it a little bit closer, but to me, it's almost it's better because I am having conversations with sellers like, oh, what is that or do that, but I feel like because we're ahead of it versus many agents in our area, probably across the country, because Royal is obviously learning every day about it and sharing it on to us, that we're able to explain it and break it down. And at the end of the day, it's good for the consumer, and it's good for the industry, but not everybody will make it through that because not everybody has and understands it or will be able to lead through it because
Which
the industry is going to
consumers are
shift.
good for?
What's that?
Which consumers are good for?
I think it's good for the sellers for sure. Yeah, the buyers, I still think things need to be worked out.
I think they're going to be at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah.
A huge
given
disadvantage.
The current system.
It's terrible for the buyers.
I don't know if it's done being painted yet, though. It can't be because right now, buyers, you could be screwed over as a buyer right now. If you go right to the listing agent, that listing agent is going to work you, right? If I go to a home inspection, I'm there with you because there's no buyer agency. Like we're going to work you. We're going to talk with you. We're going to listen to everything you're saying. We're going to go tell our seller. There might have to be some people that it goes through the wrong way for people to learn, but I still think that representation on the buy side, I think more of it's going to be painted than what is there now.
Well, when you say we're going to work you, I mean, what I would
not work it in a nice way,
no, but I get what you're saying.
They don't get it. Right?
I know, but
We're going to work you in a nice way.
well,
We're going to be nice, but we're not going to lose.
Just close your
let's
eyes.
be real. Won't hurt too much, but you know what I mean. Like first-time home buyer, good luck.
Here's the asterisk. I would
Yeah.
say. What I would say is that, we're making that clear to them that, hey, I represent the seller. You're not a client of mine. You have to sign this no agency agreement because you're in a situation you're talking about where you represent the seller. You have to sign this agreement, and anything you tell me, I'm going to tell the seller. So it's been like they should understand that And no, what I'm saying is
They
that
should.
They should.
Operative word is should. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, yes, then at that point, anything they tell us, we're going to use to our seller's advantage. But going into that, that will be fully disclosed.
For sure.
Not just, hey, can you sign this? But it'll be disclosed to them that I represent the seller. Anything you're telling me, I'm going to tell the seller. And I don't represent you at all. I think at that point, you've done what you can to let them know that, hey, buyer beware. If you don't want to be represented. And if you do want to be represented, you're going to have to actually pay someone for it. And it doesn't mean you have to pay 2.5%, 3% or whatever, but that's up to them to negotiate with whoever they're working with to represent them.
Long term, this market, does that work? Like right now, the home, once you get on the market, it's gone for most markets, right? And there's some price changes up in McHenry County, some of that's changing. But does that really work long term? When, let's say we go back to the 2008 crisis, you're telling me as a seller isn't going to pay some type of commission to bring buyers through my house? Like that, if it's that type of market, like what do you guys, from being through 2008 and going through that in a down market, like what do you think happens there?
Well, for sure. I mean, it's easy for sellers to be saying all that kind of stuff now. But I remember when they were offering out agent bonuses,
Totally.
Well, which, I mean, according to the way everybody is talking now, all of a sudden, how was that ever even allowed, an agent bonus? I mean, that specifically says to the entire world, agents, look through and see where there are bonuses and bring your buyers to that house, which I have to say, I don't even look at the co-op, but I think I'm in I do now because I have to tell my buyer before I go through what the co-op is. But, it's going to get back to that. The sellers are going to do whatever the sellers need to do to get it sold. And I also think for the buyers, it may all end up better in the long run also, because they will be better off when they're paying their own agent.
Yes.
But it's going to be a big disadvantage for all of the bottom of the market buyers for a long time, in my opinion.
So
I think
what,
so,
where
too.
I feel there's a disconnect is that you guys were saying in a different market things will change, and I don't disagree with that. But the important thing, I don't think anything changes now. Like we don't display compensation on the MLS. We're still having a co-op conversation discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that's still fully happening.
For
Even
sure.
when it's not displayed on the MLS, we're still going to have a section that says this is what we'll pay if someone brings in a buyer. We're still going to have that
Still
discussion.
there, yeah.
So I don't know what changes
Right.
come whenever, December next year, on the conversations we're having, because ultimately we're saying, hey, if they bring in a buyer, we're going to compensate them for it, X amount of dollars. And if they say that they are only willing to pay, $100, then we have to explain to them that means that, that's what's going to be displayed wherever we display it, or when they call us, that's what we tell them. Hey, we'll give you $100 if you do this. Then, hello.
Just joking.
So, but then, the buyer has to make the decision: do I pay my broker, the minimum I said I was going to pay?
Right.
And if the buyer says, you know what, I don't want to see any listings where I have to pay you personally, then the seller's not going to get that traffic.
Right.
Right. So then, if we come to a 2008, 2009 market, I don't think any of these changes really make any difference, other than co-op becomes a lot more important.
Yeah.
Because right
it's
now,
how we do it.
You could have the buyer. There's so little inventory out there.
Right.
They could just call people directly, but if there's an overwhelming amount of inventory and they need to kind of sift through and need an expert to help them out with that,
Right.
then they're going to be more willing to pay for that.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like the exact same thing is going to happen then is happening now. It's just the sellers are going to choose it instead of the agents.
Sellers are going to choose what?
They're going to choose that co-op, and they're going to choose that co-op based on the other co-ops.
The sellers are choosing it now.
Yeah, based on the other co-ops.
Oh, I don't know if it's based on. I mean, I guess each
Well, they all
experience is
ask me,
different.
what's everyone else offering?
yeah,
and I
for sure,
send them,
we've seen-
like, okay, here's,
homeowners
which will
for
be
sure
harder
ask
to
that.
do when it's not in the MLS, but
Yeah.
they are asking me, what's everybody else offering.
I also think it's a benefit
You
of
just
us.
give them a rundown of what everyone else is offering.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm allowed
Yeah.
to do that, right?
Yeah, you can do that. You can show them, of the comps that we went over. Here's
Right.
what the
Yeah.
co-ops are.
We talk to each other as agents. I feel like it's a benefit of being a royal family. Like, we're a tight knit group. Like, we know we have a test of the market ourselves to understand like this is what we're seeing, and we're learning and growing with that, right? So that'll help. But
What I would say that to that point is that this is all new territory.
For sure.
So
Yeah, we're
now
not
as-
supposed to be doing that, right?
What?
Talking about
Well, we can talk within
Our
internally
team.
within our
Yeah.
company.
within our company.
Yeah, we just can't talk with other brokerages
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it. So,
Okay.
we never really knew, okay, how much of a difference does a co-op make if we do this or do that and showing
Yeah.
activity. So we've had experience. I've had experiences where I can, give to you guys. Okay, I listed this at X, X percent co-op,
Right.
and this is what happened. This is how the agents reacted. But I listed it here, and this is how they reacted in terms of asking for their
And
compensation
how has that
or not.
been going? Are you noticing
it's-
a lower co-op makes a difference or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not going to say a huge difference,
Yeah.
but it
But the
does.
Or
market's,
that's the
the
market,
market said
yeah.
Right. It does make a difference in terms of if the buyer's agent asks for commission
Yeah.
or if they don't. There seems to be a certain threshold where they do.
Oh, sure, for sure.
you
Yeah.
know, where they do ask for something.
But I just think it's like a mistake to make that be an issue because in this market of multiple offers on multiple offers where people just go nuts, the more offers you have, the better. You're going to make more money off that multiple offer situation than you are paying a huge co-op. You know what I mean? Like, why take
sure.
anybody out of the? Don't take any buyers out. What you want is, hey, I got 10 offers. You know what I mean? Like, to get those offers to go nuts. And in this market, they are going nuts, and it's going to make you way more than what it would cost you to pay, a co-op equal to or better than, like I just saw a listing offering a really high co-op, agent owned, offering a really high co-op. I mean, that's smart. They know that if we don't have to worry about buyers coming up with their own money for this and their emotional attachment to their money being paid for this because you're not offering it, all of it, whatever, then they're more emotionally involved in the purchase, which is where we want them. Mm-hmm. That's what, at the end of the day, real estate is 100% emotional. They buy it and they pay the price they pay because they're imagining their life and who they want to be in that house. And
Yeah, it takes
you
away
want to
from
have as
that
many of
if they
those
have to
people
pay
in
you.
there,
Yeah.
fighting for that house as possible. A 0.5% here or there, it's dropping the bucket in terms
Yeah.
of prices people are getting.
Yeah, but then it becomes at what point does it make a difference and it does not, and that's just something we can't really find out now. Especially you can't aggregate that information and give it to all the brokers.
Right.
Because that would be colluding in a way, I guess. But we can internally talk about, okay, this is the experience we've had here and here. And then and I'm sure that'll evolve. The market becomes, a lot more difficult where there's a lot of listings out there. Then, I would assume you would see co-ops go up. But we're still going to always have that co-op component.
The difference is now, like you explain. I know it won't be on the MLS, but as a brokerage, you can still have it on your website, correct? Yeah. So it'll be there as of now. I'm thinking hopefully something else comes together to like have more of a centralized place, but maybe not.
So here's the situation with that, and the reading through the settlement. So the MLS can't display it, can't be, a vehicle to have it displayed. But the MLS cannot be feeding in, from my understanding, be feeding into another portal, website, whatever.
So Zillow.
That's used as an aggregator of that. And if they're doing that, then, I don't know, then the question is, do you cut the feed off? Because that goes against what this settlement is. So that's something I wasn't aware of before, that I just saw that, if we're enabling another platform to aggregate
It's the
co-op
same
commissions,
thing. We're just calling it something else.
then we need to address that.
also, it's going to be a lot more difficult for the public. Like Zillow didn't used to show the co-op, right? And now they show the co-op.
Yeah.
And they show the co-op because buyers might want to know, because that may determine whether or not they're going to have to pay their agent something to go take a look at that house.
Mm-hmm.
With that not being on Zillow, because it's just feeding through the MLS, right? Now buyers aren't going to know what the co-op is. They're going to have to talk to an agent or go figure out where are these things posted.
Well, it still could be on there. It just can't, from my understanding, can't be fed in from the MLS. So my guess is that, like, if we as a broker,
we can just go in there and put it in there. Interesting.
I think.
But
I don't know.
No.
I don't know the answer to that, but
because they're a brokerage, so they can't just put everybody's on there.
But are they putting it on there, or is it the broker that's putting it on there? You know.
Yeah, but it's still their site. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how
that'll
the
work
legality is behind that.
I think more of the picture needs to be painted.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a,
Well, then could we invite everybody to come on our site and put theirs on there too?
I mean, that might be, but, that's just not going to happen.
Well, it's not going to happen with our site. But, I mean, it could happen with a lot of the bigger sites. That might be added to the listing checklist, right? Like, go on all the big sites and put in your co-op.
Yeah.
If that,
know?
And we could be talking about something that's totally wrong, but yeah, I mean, that very well could be the case.
Yeah.
Right? If you want people to know that it's out there.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I would want the buyers to know, because a lot of them are trying not to work with agents because they don't want to pay anything, or they're using those sites to find places, and if they can't, it's like when I go to the store. If I go to the store and I don't see the price, I just leave.
Mm-hmm.
I don't run around for an hour trying to find somebody to tell me what the price of this is.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Was that interesting?
Oh, that's funny. Cut.
Come again.
Blooper.
All right, what are you looking up? Obviously, it's very important.
Well, no, because it addresses what we're talking about.
Are you
Do you
sure
wanna-
you don't know what
do-
I was talking
Do you
about?
want to? Do you want to say that again, and then he could come back to that? So then we have
Yeah.
then he'll listen this time.
I
That will definitely make
I
the
don't even
blooper
remember what
reel.
I was saying. Something to the tune of, the buyers are going to want all the co-ops to be in some place that they can find it easily too.
The buyers or buyer agents?
The buyers.
I don't think the buyers are going to need
If
that.
they have to pay their agent, if it's not a certain amount, they're not going to want to know that. They're going to want to know that.
Well, I think as the agent, you have to tell your buyer that.
Well, they're going to know that as soon as they sign a buyer agency agreement, right? As soon as I go through the buyer agency agreement, which I know a lot of agents aren't doing that yet, but I've been doing it with my buyers this year. And, I always say, or they ask, well, tell us what the co-op is before we go see the house. Because they want to know if they're going to have to pay out of pocket,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of them, even if you set them up on the MLS, they have their own ways of looking that they like to use, like Zillow.
Yeah.
They're always sending me stuff
For sure.
from
I don't
Zillow
s- I
that's
don't-
under contract.
I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't see a world where the buyer is they're expecting you to do that. And it says in your buyer agency agreement that you're going to do that. So I don't see a world where they're like, oh, I need to look at this compensation before I take a. I mean, it'd be great to see it, but I don't think that.
I just think when they're
that's gonna be
shopping on
important
like
to them.
Zillow, if they like see a house and they're like, I kind of like it. Well, let's see our, what's the co-op on it? Am I going to be paying more for it? Just like some people care, like, are all the appliances included? I
Yeah.
have to pay more
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Or is it, you know what I mean?
Is it
like,
important? Yeah, but are they gonna? Is it gonna be what determines where they search? I don't know. Well, we'll see.
I think
I would want
it
the whole picture
could-
wherever I'm searching.
Could be interesting. I'm going to go into the future here. So with that,
Oh, boy.
but these apps, saying good luck. But with the apps like Redfin or the Zillow, behind the scenes, we understand what Redfin's going to be asking for a buyer's agency agreement. I feel like big places like that, because they're so accessible to the Zillow or the Redfin, if they're saying, Redfin was saying, hey, you have to sign a buyer's agreement of 1.5% to for them to show you a home, they're getting people locked in at that 1.5%. If they have that much attention from an app, does that steer where we go with what the buyer's commission is? And is that how people will know? They'll get, Redfin charges 1.5%. Why would I go work with another realtor if Redfin's doing that? They don't understand there's a different level of expertise that's going to come from other realtors that are out there. So where I think about this in a couple ways. One, we have to define our value, right? As soon as started this year when all this was coming up, you're buyer presentations. This is a listing presentation. So maybe buyers now will interview a few buyers agents to see who's the right fit, and then they'll match their commissions just like sellers have done. I mean, we don't know. All this is hypothetical, but I think that's a piece of it. But to show our value now, I think is super important. Where before we'd be like, oh, cool, you want to buy a house? Cool, you pre-approved? Okay, cool. Where are you looking? And you kind of go. Now you have to make sure that they understand the process, that there is a lot of moving pieces within here, and me as your agent's going to guide you through those. And where if you're doing it alone, that you're not going to have that service, you're not going to have that level of expertise being able to support you. But be interesting how it continues to evolve. Yeah.
So my comment to that would be, plenty of agents had some type of buyer consultation. Probably not as strong as they're now making it, because they have to get someone to sign. That's part of the settlement, is that we have to have a written buyer agreement signed with them. Buyer agency agreement could be exclusive, non-exclusive, but you have something signed showing how much you're going to be compensated. And if you put on there, oh, don't worry about it, I'm going to get compensated by a listing broker, so just give me a minimum of $500, whatever, you're not going to be able to be paid more than $500.
Right.
If that co-op is 3%, and you should get $8,000 to $10,000, you can only get $500.
And then the seller just keeps the rest.
Yeah, I would imagine, right? I don't know the details of that, but I would imagine, unless there's something
It's got to be the seller just keeps buyer doesn't keep it.
No, buyer wouldn't keep. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I would assume, but you would think that the seller just wouldn't have to pay that.
Right.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
They keep
so
it.
you would think.
Yeah.
So having that's the other structural change. I think you got the one structural change of the MLS, no co-op being offered on there. The other is that now we actually have to act like professionals and get this agreement signed, just like we always did with sellers, to say, hey, you want to move forward with me? This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to represent you, and I'm going to do all these different things. Now with the buyer, you have to have that same approach. And I think that's amazing. And there's going to be certain buyers, like the buyers that we know that are referred to us or have some type of trust with us, or whatever it may be. They look at us as the expert, their advisor, the person they wanted to guide them. Like, nothing's going to change, but we're just going to have a much more thorough presentation, which we should have always. Then it becomes especially the brokerages that. Or brokers that would get lots of leads that were just people who are just one-offs that just want to look at a property. That buyer, do they want to sign an agreement stating that they're going to compensate this person X amount of dollars right off the bat? So are they going to go with that brokerage like Redfin or Zillow or whatever, or are they going to call the listing agent directly, and then just be like, I don't need a broker. I don't want to pay that. So I think you'll see a mix of that. But ultimately, what I think you'll see is the co-op become more of a market, a rate determined by the market.
For sure, yeah, which will be healthy.
No, that's exactly what I said. It's
Yeah.
going to be exactly the same thing. It's just instead of being that co-op being determined by agents, it's going to be determined by the sellers. It's going to be determined by the market.
And what the buyers can pay, right? If the seller is not paying that, I think of the first-time home buyer here, and they're struggling in this market. Obviously, the market will shift whenever it's going to shift. But if you're asking your first-time home buyer now to be able to pay my commission, that's hard for some people, not everybody. But if you're a first-time home buyer, you don't have equity to pull from. That could hurt that market if something doesn't incentivize or change.
You're going to get more creative models, per hour, flat fee, commission, but the co-op being determined by the seller, I'm not sure because the buyer's the one that needs to have the agreement with their agent. So what I'm saying is that that's going to be determined by the market between buyer and buyer's agent, and the buyer saying, I'm willing to pay X. Because there might be a certain point where it's like, hey, I try to get 3% with my buyers, but they just won't pay that. Right. So there's a certain point where it'll come to where, okay, this is where the value is at.
Yeah, but I mean, there's the same thing with the sellers. I mean, it's going to happen on both sides. Yeah, buyers and sellers. They're going to just create what it is. It'll probably end up close to what it is now.
Yeah, but it's
this job is crazy. People aren't going to be able to do it for less, and unless literally you're getting somebody who's not really working. They're not really an agent. They don't know what they're doing. You shouldn't be listening to them.
Yeah, I mean, to be a buyer's
you pay little,
right
you're going to get little.
Brutal.
But to your point about, is Redfin or Zillow or any of them talking about having agreements that people just sign immediately if they're on that platform and want to see a house?
I am also a CIA agent, and I've done some undercover research. I could share it with you after the podcast of what we know about Redfin.
Because otherwise,
it's my backup job as a
they're
CIA
losing
agent.
a whole huge part of their industry. If they don't do something like that.
Their model, is changing, and I think they're going to me, it's more of a traditional brokerage than an employee brokerage, which you called 6 years ago. It's like, how are they going to be able to balance this business in a bad market or a shifting market? And you're right on.
Well,
and they
and
had to switch.
Rates. Yeah.
The employee model didn't work.
Yeah.
A lot of managing brokers or owners or companies probably could have told you that.
Right. Yeah, they've never made a dollar.
Yeah. No.
They've always lost money.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But,
what I wanted to mention before is that just this is from the settlement that the required practice regarding displaying of co-op. The required practice changes also prevent NAR, member boards, and realtor MLSs from creating an MLS-like system under a different name and from facilitating others' efforts to do so. So I take that as, if we see that, a portal is aggregating the co-op commission, but also the question becomes, if they're getting that information, I don't know. Hold on, let's see. This includes express restrictions on providing listing information to an internet aggregator that uses it to facilitate listing brokers or sellers making cooperative compensation offers and providing data or data feeds to a realtor or realtor MLS participant. Blah blah blah.
So basically, they're just saying you can't put these in any one place.
Where this data is used to facilitate offers of compensation on listings from more than one brokerage. Okay, so I guess from reading that, how could Homes.com, Zillow, whatever website,
that none of them would be able to put everything up.
They shouldn't be able to put any other brokerage compensation up.
Yeah, that answers that.
So then, so then, how does that get determined? I mean, that's going to be a lot more work for buyers brokers having to figure out some type of system.
Yeah.
Could it be on showing instructions?
No, because that would be the same thing.
Part of
They're
showing
saying
time.
it can't be anywhere, but that would just make showing time that place where it always is that they're saying it can't be.
What's done in commercial? Like, what is that? Because that's their commission's not listed on
commercial.
Yeah. But it's
I think
you have to
what's
agree
done-
behind the scenes.
From my understanding is that you build that into your offer.
Yeah, like a letter of intent. That's what I've heard too.
So I think that's kind of what they're trying to get to evolve here, is where they ultimately, I know the Department of Justice would like.
So far, that's not working, because if you try to build it into the offer, the seller's like, right? Hasn't that been your experience? If they're trying to get their compensation for their buyer's agent in the offer, it's not.
It's a closing cost credit, so it just depends on how competitive their offer is. Yeah, I mean, it definitely reduces their competitiveness.
Yeah, and you're not seeing closing cost credits in this market.
No, not in this market. You're losing. You're losing.
that.
Yeah, and the one that I had, the agent put their commission in there, but then it was a cash deal, which didn't make a lot of sense to me because the buyer could just pay it.
I've had that, a cash deal with closing
You're
costs.
inflating
It's
the
like,
number, but they're bringing that money
how many times can I
anyways.
explain
Yeah.
how this works to you?
That doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
That doesn't
So-
make sense. Just to offer less, you know.
You're paying it either way if we put it in here
You're
or not.
paying it. You're netting the same cost, the same price for your purchase. So
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of realtors, and the one I had that was really low, each of the brokers really had no idea what they're doing. So I think, and I kind of guided a couple of them, and they don't have their own different ways of trying to approach it. But I think this is just going to be a matter of companies trying to give, guidance to their agents, but
Right.
as we know, there's a lot of brokers that don't do a lot of business.
Right.
So it's going to be a constant issue.
I think it's great for industry and us as agents who want to serve our clients for the rest of our lives. We're going to weed some agents out here, and we still have a lot to learn with the NAR settlement and how it's going to evolve our industry. But anything else you guys want to talk about on this, or you want to keep that to the next episode?
The only other thing that I have heard of that I thought was kind of interesting topic is Jen talking about if you have to call me to find out what the co-op is, right? So you got all these agents calling you. You just put up the house. You got 40 agents calling you, asking you what the co-op is. No busy agent has time to call back 40 agents immediately.
For
This is going to
sure.
be over the span of some time that you're going to get back to all those agents.
Yeah.
But you're certainly going to call the agents you know or in your office first. Like, it leaves a lot of behind the scenes that she feels like could lead to
More colluding?
more collusion, unprofessionalism, ethical quandaries, gray areas, and what have you. And I would agree. It's certainly more simple to just have it out in the open. I don't understand how it got to that being a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why that's only like that for our industry, right? But the price of gas is right. You know what I mean? Like, I can't think of any other industry where they're like, nobody's allowed to tell anybody what they charge.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is that we haven't proven that we could do that as an industry.
Wait, what?
We haven't. We were given a lot of, there. It's always been where we've had it on there, the co-op, but I don't know what market studies or what they did in this trial, but were a lot of the co-ops very comparable?
Yeah, and they're
So-
going to continue to be, because if my seller is asking me, what's everyone else offering? I'm going to say this is what it is, and they're going to say, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing.
But what
so
happens
it's going
when
to
that's-
always be
when it's not-
comparable, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, baby, because if that's the reasoning, I think, of wanting to separate it, is that now it puts it on the buyer for them to determine what they feel is fair.
I mean, not as long as the sellers are still offering out any compensation of value.
What do you mean?
So currently, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it might get to a point where sellers are offering zero. That might happen, or something very low where they're, that's down the road. Right now, when I say, hey, you can offer whatever you want, I'm talking to my seller.
Yeah.
From 0 to 100 million thousand, what do you want to offer? They say, well, I don't know, what do you think I should offer? And I say, well, it's totally up to you. And they say, well, I want to offer something close to what I'm paying you. Or what's everybody else offering? And then they want to stick within that range because they don't want to be the house that costs the buyer more to buy.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a case by case. Not all sellers feel that way.
Well, that's true. Not all sellers feel that way. But
it's-
the majority of the ones I'm talking with, that's how they feel. They don't want to,
Yeah.
if you explain to them, well, why not offer zero? If they say, okay, great, let's offer zero, then what's your answer to that?
I'd say at that point, now you're going to get buyer, the buyer has their agreement with their broker that says that they're going to get paid X.
Right.
Now the buyer might not go see the home because they have to pay you a certain amount, but we don't know what the number is in that agreement that they have.
Right.
I can tell you based on my experience, if we go here, I've gotten little to no questions on it. It doesn't seem like it's had an impact on activity, but when I've gone here, it seems to, and then you can look at the other comparables and determine what you want to do. But also keep in mind that we're in this like crazy changing environment, where I think we would all agree that co-op compensations from an MLS standpoint have come down just from our
they're coming down.
What we see.
Yeah.
We don't have any analytics on that, but just from what we see in the field. So where does that go? And if it's totally separate, which is what they want, they being the Department of Justice want it. So the buyers have to pay what they feel is fair to their broker, and the seller doesn't have to.
But as long as the seller offering co-op is still a thing, that is going to play into. That's going to play into.
It's always going to be a thing. Yeah, and co-op is a thing with commercial. Because commercial is the Wild West, right?
Sellers are always offering some fashion of co-op, then that's always going to play into what the buyer's brokers are saying they're willing to work for.
Yeah. Right. Then what is that on the commercial side? I don't know. I think it depends on how much value the agent is bringing to the picture.
Well, and I think that's the key thing, that like going back to that when I was saying, why would you want anybody to be out of your multiple offer situation? These numbers are small compared to the difference in doing a good job getting your house on the market and selling it properly and having a multiple offer situation versus not having a multiple offer situation. And, I don't know. I don't think much is going to change in the long run, I guess, is what I'm saying. I think a lot of to-do is going on.
This is
over
recorded.
nothing.
Record right now. Brenna Freskos is like, I'm just joking.
I don't think a lot's going to change. We're going to call it different things. We're going to say it's different, but it's not going to be very different because the public is going to choose to do exactly what the agents always chose to do. And up until now, I don't even know how this became a thing because it was us. We asked for a certain amount of commission, and then we decided out of this commission, what do we want to offer the buyer's agent, right? We charged a certain commission. That's what our listing said. We charge this much. Out of this much, just so you know, I'm going to offer out this much. And then I'd often have conversations with sellers like, you're offering out more than you're taking? Yes, because I want to sell your house. I don't want the issue for the buyer's agent to come into play. And we want to get as many people in here as possible. And the sellers are going to feel the same way, with or without us making that decision.
I don't think anything will change on the listing side.
Yeah.
Nothing as in terms of us, like when we present it's the buy side that'll change. So that will then drive the co-op to change, I think.
Yeah.
From the seller side.
Yeah, because if all of a sudden you see things change in the market, then
and you're
gonna
putting a
change their
bunch of
opinion
listings
on
up
what
there with, 1% or 6% or 27% co-op, because I'm not saying what's a co-op, but and they keep giving you your money back because they have agreements with their buyers for $500. Then I guess you'll know you can start lowering those seller co-ops.
Yeah.
It's going to be
I don't think that's
interesting
gonna
to see
happen.
how all this plays out. I think it's going to be disrupted. But I also could see it just continue being similar, like what you're saying.
It's
but
gonna
I
be
think more
similar.
picture that needs to be painted before I could bet on that totally. But what I do know is that top agents will make it through. They always have, and they always will, with their clients in mind. Whether it's a buyer or seller, it's our job to learn and to navigate this so that we can navigate them. But at the end of the day, we know our value from the buy side. We know our value from the sell side.
Yeah. 100%.
I think as we wrap up this show. Episode 2 is in the books. Looking forward to episode 3 with you guys. Let's say peace out to everybody and have a good day and go sell some houses.
All right.
All right. Peace, everybody.
See you later, everybody.